So let's look at designing our website for mobile use. We need to consider that our websites will be viewed on many different devices of many different sizes. Even all the cell phones are not a universal size. We have tablet devices, we have huge monitors, and some people even connect TVs to their computers so they can be as huge as big screen TVs. There's a concept called one web, which is it means that we don't create completely separate websites. We don't have a separate website per se for someone to look at our website on a phone as opposed to a large monitor. We have one website and we configure it to look the best way possible no matter what device a person is using. There's some great tips for optimizing your website for mobile design on page 328 and 329. I highly suggest that you read over that because there are questions, well, there's at least one question on the test about those. So it's really common sense things like if you are looking at something small on your screen on your cell phone, you want to make sure that your text is scalable, that it doesn't appear too large where you have to zoom in and zoom out just to read. You want to limit your scrolling, so maybe you just have your website so that you scroll up and down instead of having to scroll up and down and left and right. You don't want to have too many images, especially images with text on them. All those kinds of things can help your design appear better on a small screen. One of the biggest factors, too, to consider is your file size, because remember, some people, especially us in Mississippi, do not have good wireless service. So we don't want to waste our bandwidth on downloading unnecessary content. Okay, so how do we do all this? How do we configure our website to appear differently depending upon the size of the screen? So there's two things that we use for that. And the first is the Viewport Meta Tag. Now you have already seen this because I showed you the shortcut of creating a new page. So when we go in code, if we have a new document and we do exclamation point and tab, well, I have to have it saved as an HTML file, blah, blah, blah. Let's just do blah.html. Okay, so if I do exclamation point and tab, then you have already seen the Viewport meta tag. Now, there's lots of different meta tags that people can add to their website. We've so far now only looked at two of those meta tags. Meta tags always go in the head section, and this is the Viewport meta tag. So this is kind of its standard, but there are ways that you can configure it differently if you look on page 331 in the book. Okay, so what does this do? Let me go back to this particular website. So we've worked on this one before, and this website does not have a meta viewport tag. And notice how this text here is really small. So what I've done here is I've pressed Command-Alt-J in Chrome, or you can go to View Developer, and I think it's maybe Developer Tools. I can't remember exactly. Might be Console. And you can view what your website looks by pressing this button in different devices. So you can see what it looks like in a Galaxy S5 or an iPad, etc., etc. So this is what it would look like on an iPhone 6, 7, and 8 without a viewport tag. This text is really small. This stuff is really large. We use the Viewport Meta Tag to make our website appear like this, which I know is contrary to what we would think, because it looks terrible right now because the user has to scroll both horizontally and vertically to read our content. But that's why we also use media queries. So we use this to make sure that our website is scaling the way that we want it to scale. And then we use a media query to change our CSS so that it appears the way that we want it to appear. Okay, so a media query Again, let me show you. This is the Viewport Meta Tag. These are different things than what I'm about to talk about. The media query is different than the Viewport Meta Tag, okay? Now, the media query is in your CSS, okay? Now, you can do it two ways. You could have a media query like a separate CSS document that you apply the media query rule when you link your document. And if you want to see an example of that, it is on page 332 at the top. So you have a completely separate CSS document similar to the print document that we did in the last project. And then that CSS only applies when a screen size meets a certain criteria, okay? In this project, we are just going to use the @media rule inside of our CSS. So our media query will be inside of the CSS that we already have. So what does the media query do? The media query says, hey, based on the size of something, change something about our CSS. So this is what it looks like. We have @media, just somewhere in our CSS. We use the keyword only for older browsers because this is a relatively new thing. Older browsers won't be able to support it. So we use the keyword screen, and we say max width of however wide we want the maximum width to be before this applies, okay? So right now my background color is yellow. But if I change my window size, and this is representing the window size, when I get below 600, this rule applies. This rule does not apply until my window has resized below 600. So it's yellow regularly, and then when I make it smaller, it turns blue. Okay, that's essentially what we'll do with our media queries. Something will change based on the size of our window. Okay, so let's take a look at project hands-on 7-7. I already have that open, not blah. I had it open right here. Okay, we'll be working with Lighthouse Bistro, and this is the site that we're working on. And right now when we resize this, see how that picture comes over our nav section? It doesn't look really nice. It would not look really nice on a mobile browser, mobile device. So we're going to change that. We already have some embedded CSS. Notice if this is not there already, make sure you add that to your document in the meta section. And from now on, make sure this is always there. So if you use the shortcut, the exclamation point and tab, it will automatically put that in there. But from now on, that needs to be there. Okay, so I am working on page 334 if you want to follow along in the book. We are going to go all the way down to the bottom of our embedded CSS, and we are still in our style section, and we are going to create our first media query. We use the @media rule, so @ keyword media. The word only, remember, makes older browsers ignore this. Keyword screen, and then max width 1024 pixels. Now, I am so used to when I type a pixel to put a semicolon there because that's what we do with all of our rules. But this is different. The semicolon does not go there, nor does a semicolon go there. The media queries are a little different than our traditional CSS rules, okay? Once you have that, let's open up a set of curly brackets. And inside the curly brackets, we can change what we want to change based on the screen size being that size or below that size. So we're going to say main margin left 0. And notice how we have embedded curly brackets. So make sure that you maintain your sets of curly brackets correctly. We're going to do a float none and a width of auto. Okay, so copy that over, And let's check our code and see if we have any changes now. And did you see what happened? This was floating over our navigation, but it is no longer floating over our navigation. All right, now we're going to modify this a little bit. This is on page 335 if you want to follow along. Okay, pause the video if you need to and copy the remaining rules over for this media query. And then let's take a look in the browser at what changes have been made with this. So you see we're starting to look a lot better now with our media query. All right, let's keep going. We now are going to add a separate media query for even smaller devices. So this is about the size of a tablet. So we're going from our traditional complete website that would look something like this to a tablet size, which is about there. But we want to have one for even smaller sites like a mobile device. So see, we kind of have some kooky stuff going on here when it's really small. So let's see if we can fix that with a media query for even smaller screens. So again, we use the @media rule. We say keyword only, screen, and max width 768. And then all of our new CSS rules will be inside of this set of curly brackets. Okay, pause the video and copy over our CSS rules for the media query for the smaller devices. And once you have that typed, let's check it out in a browser. When I refresh this, we should see lots of changes. And we do. So basically we have a vertical nav now. We made that picture go away, so it's unnecessary. The person viewing on a mobile, it's not completely necessary that they see that picture. If they were viewing from an iPad or a tablet, this is the way that the website would appear. And then if they were viewing on a computer, this is the way that the website would appear. So we have the basic core structure of this website changing to appear 3 different ways simply by changing our CSS. We didn't have to change any of our content, and our design remains largely the same. So that's pretty cool. So those are media queries and our meta viewport tag.